One quick and dirty way that we can take a lot of what is very powerful in management research about leadership and to make it more relevant to us is a linguistic one. I've said in previous lessons that language matters and that we need to pay attention to the words that we use. Here, I want us to pay attention to grammar. Don't worry, it's simple grammar. We want to take nouns that oftentimes describe different aspects of leadership, and we want to make them into verbs. What does that mean? It means, as we will explore in a future lesson, we don't just talk about a team as a static entity involving a number of different individuals, but we talk about teaming. That is a process, a practice, a verb that emphasizes the ongoing nature of coming together in a small group in order to make things happen. Here, what I want us to think about is authenticity. Authenticity is a complicated word, as I've said, that has meanings going back to the ancient times. It was picked up on in the Enlightenment, and there are arguments about exactly what, in fact, authenticity means. One leadership shorthand that we can use is to change authenticity into a verb. What does it mean not to ask yourself, am I being authentic, or for that matter, inauthentic at a given moment, versus asking ourselves, in a given decision, with a given action, am I authenticating myself? Am I participating in a process or a practice of becoming more authentic? And the real distinction here is not that there is a single standard of being authentic that we reach for and, as social beings, almost inevitably fail to reach, but rather to understand that all of what we do is an ongoing process of authentication where we are regularly, every day, trying to stay aware of, to act upon the values and beliefs that are central to who we believe we are, and then to assess, okay, did we get closer? Was that leadership decision one that was very much in keeping with the principles that I want to live my life by, that I want to define my leadership by? Two English management researchers, Rob Goffey and Gareth Jones, wrote a wonderful phrase in one of their books. They talked about the benefit of being authentic enough. And I think that is very helpful. We should not, in fact, hold on to that authentic versus inauthentic standard. What we want to do is understand, again, that our efforts are always going to be incomplete. But as leaders every day, part of what we want to do is strive toward authentication, to strive toward acting upon, living by the values and beliefs that we hold dear. There's some complexity when it comes to this process of what I've called leadership authentication, the ongoing everyday process that leaders need to engage in to strive toward authenticity. One is the reality that we have different selves. That is, we don't have a single self to which we want to be authentic. Imagine, for example, the different selves that you bring to your work life and maybe your home life. The way you are with your boss and the way you are with your partner or your family. One of those is not authentic and the other inauthentic. Rather, we are presenting different versions of ourselves to those different contexts. Half a century ago, a sociologist named Irving Goffman wrote a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. And this idea of presentation is one that I would urge you to hold on to. This is not being false to ourselves. This is not about wearing different masks. This is not a performance. Rather, Goffman specifically chose the word presentation because he wanted, as subsequent scholars have said, to have each of us recognize that we have multiple selves within us. And we present those depending on the individual context in which we find ourselves. That leaves us with the challenge as leaders to recognize whether we in fact are presenting our right self in the right situation with the right people. And aligning those different questions, or our answers to those different questions, is a great challenge, especially with the speed of business, with the code switching that we have to engage in, moving among different groups and different realms of our life. This is also the basis of an important acknowledgement that a wonderful leadership scholar named Herminia Ibarra has made. Ibarra specifically refutes the idea that we should aspire to a single self that we understand from our past. And rather, she uses a wonderful phrase. She talks about engaging in design thinking for the self, where we pursue kind of experimentation. We try on different roles. We engage in different sorts of activities that help us, in fact, to become new and better people. That is, to authenticate ourselves in different ways from who we may have been authentically in the past. This doesn't mean that we can't build on those crucible moments from our teenage years. It doesn't mean that we can't remain proud of those moments of authentication when we made particularly effective decisions or took actions that we're proud of. But it does mean that we have to be willing to step forward into the unknown in developing ourselves and to learning more about ourselves, to crafting the selves that we want to be as leaders going forward, in the same way that we design and experiment with building new products, new services for a marketplace. The complexity and the dynamism of authentication means that we need to develop ongoing practices of self-reflection, of self-experimentation, of self-understanding.